Despite having zero intentions to become an entrepreneur and a background in brand management, Julie Wiener's granola company, Granolust, grew out of an opportunity to sell her handmade granola at a local juice bar. And, well, it blew up. Years later, this Canadian company is thriving, yes, even during the pandemic. But in order to scale and take her company to the next level, she needs to sell to the US and also just start selling in more volume. So Julie needs my help. Granolust has a lot going for it, especially its beautiful, modern, sexy packaging. Yes, granola can be sexy, but Julie needs advice on direction for new packaging, and she also needs to talk through selling at trade shows, more selling opportunities and scaling opportunities, production, working with micro influencers, and most importantly, pricing as she scales and grows the company. Well, hello and welcome, Julie. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. I would love for you to introduce yourself, talk about your business and your brand, and then we will dive into helping you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for wanting to have me on the podcast. So my name is Julie Wiener. I am from Montreal, Canada. I accidentally started Granolust in 2017. I was not looking to start a business. I was certainly not looking to start a business in the food industry. My background was actually, I graduated from university with a combined honors degree in journalism and film studies, and did nothing with that, and then proceeded to work in the fashion industry for my entire career. And literally this Granolust business fell into my lap in the summer of 2017. And so, just to make everybody aware, Granolust is all natural, vegan, gluten-free, premium granola. No refined sugars, only the healthiest oils, no additives, no preservatives, just super clean, super tasty, super sexy granola that I have been selling and hustling and working hard at accidentally since 2017. So that's the short version.
Yeah, I love it. I love you're bringing sexy back to granola.
Yes, me and Justin Timberlake, we are bringing sexy back.
So yeah, I got excited when you just said that you went to journalism school, because so did I in Toronto. So we have that in common.
Yes, we do. I went to Carleton actually, but probably much before you. Yeah.
I don't know about that. You'd be surprised. Okay. So first of all, I love the branding, as you know, like absolutely love the branding and the design, which is so it's like half the battle, honestly. And I love the product. I have tasted the product. It's delicious. I love it. And so you wrote in because I think you are looking to obviously grow and scale. And you're also looking at getting into the US market, which, you know, for a lot of companies is a great way to kind of scale even more and faster. So I have a couple questions. So you make this delicious granola and the packaging is stunning. And so at this point, I am going to share my screen. So everyone who is listening to us on the podcast, you can also follow along by going to the Instagram, which is at granolust_. And so it's GRANO and then the word lust, LUST_. So it's kind of that play on words. You can check out their profile on Instagram while we have this episode, or you can visit their website, which is granolust.com. So everyone joining us on YouTube can see what I'm looking at now. So I am showing everyone this gorgeous packaging. And so I'm showing this off because I want to show everyone a fantastic thing that you're doing instead of starting by diving into what you can do to improve. This brand, the branding, the colors, the fonts, And the fact that the packaging is Black, I think is really, really important for everyone to see. Obviously, I'm sure that this was very intentional on your part. Obviously, the dark colors exude kind of a sexiness. But the fact that it is that the packaging design and the branding is so minimal, I think is really, really important because it will differentiate your product on a shelf with all the other similar products. And, a friend of mine started this company, Human Improvement, and they have a protein powder that actually is from crickets in Canada. The Canadian connections.
It all comes back together.
And what he's doing with Human Improvement is it's just these protein powders that are cricket based that are delicious, but the branding is very similar to yours in that it will stand out in an industry that is very, I want to say granola. It's very like hippie. It's very like the fonts, the design, the aesthetic of other brands in your category is very different from you. And this is why you're going to have a leg up, because when you're at Whole Foods, when you're, at a store looking at granola, your product's going to stand out, which is really, really smart. So I just wanted to give you your flowers and share this packaging and branding for everyone so that they understand what I talk about in all my episodes when I'm talking about like a solid design when it comes to logo, branding, colors, like this is it. So props to you on that.
Thank you. I worked with a branding guy that I had worked with in fashion, and we sat, and that's when we came up with, I knew right away it had to be Black bags. And a lot of this, I can't take credit for it. Most of it was his idea. Yeah. He gave me a whole board and things to choose from, but I knew it needed to be Black. I knew that it needed to not have a window. I knew it needed to be but instinctively, not based on anything, because I never had a plan. Everything has just been chasing what's been happening, without being mindful. Oh, because truthfully, the last thing the world needs is another granola brand. Like, had I chosen to go into business, it wouldn't have been in such a competitive space. But having said that, although our 3 traditional flavors are fantastic, I think, and people tell me, the one that's really different that sets us apart is this savory one that we're doing, which is a rosemary. I don't know if that you tried that one too, but it's a rosemary vegan Parmesan, which is not meant for your morning yogurt and smoothie and smoothie bowl. This is like, eat as a salty, healthier version of a chip, eat it, replace your salted nuts or whatever, or add to a salad, add to soup, add to avocado toast, roasted vegetables. So that's really where it's led us, basically.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's another thing that I can point out to all of our listeners, which is that the power of good design is very important, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be the designer. This is the other thing that I think a lot of small businesses don't understand. It's like, hire a professional and look at the difference. Like, you come from the fashion world, you hired a professional and they created fantastic branding. Like, that font is perfect. So then what I wanted to really talk about is the scaling part and the pricing, because originally how I discovered you was that you wanted to have your product in our care package boxes, which would be amazing. It's a great idea. But then as soon as I got your pricing sheets, I was like, oh no, this is a huge problem. And then I reached out to you and I was like, do you want to be on the podcast? So I can talk you through this and help you. Because it doesn't matter whether it's Canadian or US dollars. The strategy behind your pricing is I think going to be the problem for you scaling. So if you can just describe right now, so like, let's just say a bag of granola, your average bag of granola, what is the wholesale price that you sell? So wholesale, for anyone listening, I hope that you know what wholesale means, but I'm just going to throw that out there in case you don't. Wholesale is the price that, let's say, a Whole Foods or a small mom and pop convenience store, like, wholesale is the price that they're going to buy their granola at. And then the retail price is what they're going to sell. It's the MSRP. So it's like the suggested retail price, in fact. So what is your wholesale and then what is your retail?
Okay. So we have two sizes of bag.
Yeah.
We have in Canada, I mean, it's 300 grams, which is like the kind
The
you'd
larger.
find, the larger one that you'd find on a shelf in a grocery store. And then we have this 70 gram, which is
Yes.
basically like 2 servings and a bit. This is perfect. And this is where we do a lot with gift basket companies, monthly subscription box companies, corporate gifts, and any kind of grab and go situation in a cafe, at the cash, that kind of thing. So the wholesale on the small bag is $3 with a suggested retail of $4.75. And the larger bags, the wholesale is $5.50 for a suggested retail of $7.99.
Okay, perfect. So as a retailer, retail was already tough before COVID. Now it is extremely tough. And I guess when I say retail, I am thinking about traditional brick and mortars. However, a lot of those brick and mortars are now going online. Like we get all of our groceries from Whole Foods, like delivered, right? So they're still taking our money. We're just not going into the stores. That's for those people who have been able to transition online. But as things start to open up a little, and it will never go back to normal. However, I think there's going to be innovation and changes that will be great for everyone.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, though, you still need retailers, whether they're like a traditional brick and mortar, whether they're an online, whether they're a gift box, what have you. So the big thing that was like glaringly obvious to me is that the profit margin is so slim on the product that it makes it hard for the retailer to make any money. And so if the bag is $3 wholesale, the suggested retail should really be $6, right?
So Keystone is what you're saying.
Yes.
Like a 50%.
If not even more, because in the food and beverage industry, a lot of the companies that I know that are doing huge business, millions of dollars, volumes. Now, granted, also millions of dollars doesn't mean that is all profit. That's revenue. It doesn't mean that's profit. But again, if you want to scale, so you can stay where you're at now and make the amount of money that you're making, or you can scale, you may only ever make truly like profit another 100,000, another 200,000 per year. We're not talking about huge volume, but you're going to scale. The volume of what you're selling is going to be a lot more. So the real thing that I see in this equation is, honestly, if you could get to a point where, the retailers were making even more than that margin, that's going to help you scale and grow. If you could get to the point that some of the other food and beverage brands that I know, if they have a wholesale of 3 and they can have a suggested retail of 8, that opens my eyes as a business person and as a retailer, because it's like, oh, the profit margins are much better on this brand. So I would rather go with Granolust than XYZ brand, because you are in a competitive industry. So if you can, and I believe because of the capital that your branding and your design, it exudes a quality that is different. And also it's not just like frivolous. The thing is, you're backing it up. You don't use unhealthy oils. So the ingredients to your products, it's really about quality. And so that is worth money, right? Like it is. And people will pay for that. Someone like me and a lot of other people, I would rather pay, $10 for a bag of really, really healthy granola than $6.50. But for something that's like a crappier product, to be perfectly honest. And I think more and more people, especially Gen Z, honestly, like they're so much more aware of the impact of the companies that they support and the things that they put into their body. Like, they're different from a lot of us. They're much more aware and they're very into sustainability. And so I think that you want to figure out a way to increase the profit margin for the end user, which for that scenario is the retailer, because that will help you scale and really get if you can get into one region of Whole Foods, this is how a lot of F&B brands do it. It's like you start local. They give you a test run in Southern California. And if the product does well in Southern California, then they open it up to California. Then they open it to the whole region. And then they push you national. And that is when companies really see the uplift. And so that's the goal for you, right? It's to get more of these accounts. So you definitely have to do that. And then honestly, for the direct to consumer, if you also at the same time are smart about this and grow the D2C side of things, of selling and shipping your product out directly, your profit margin becomes massive, massive. And that's just exciting. I'm just like seeing dollar signs, because it's at the end of the day, yes, we're a business. Like it's about making money, because if you aren't making enough money for you to be sustainable and for you to keep going, you'll just stop. And then no one gets to experience the amazing granola.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things that you have to do. I'm curious about when it comes to the packaging, if there's a way, because I know it's very intentional, the fact that it does not have a window. That is very, very intentional. It's also very smart. However, I'm curious if there's a way for the bottom of the bag to have that peak window. And the only reason I say that is because I do also think that there are probably a lot of people who are like, I'm just not sure. And seeing 100%. It's one of these stupid things. It's like, okay, you see, the ingredients are right there on the bag. Almonds, oats, you could see them all. But for some reason, the visual, okay,
you're 100% right. You're 100% right. And quite honestly, over the years, I've definitely heard that a handful of times. Right. I was mindfully, it's funny, I have a friend who's in the gluten-free business. He's a big brand, and he was sort of mentoring me a little bit at the beginning. And he said, when I was showing him the design for the first bag, he said, are you sure you don't want to put a window on there? And I said, I'm sure I don't want to put a window on there. He said, oh, so you want to disrupt the granola industry? I said, yes, sure. I want to disrupt the granola. Having said that, about 2.5 years ago, we printed our first, I think we had to print 10,000 of each SKU, which was scary at the time because it's a lot. And we're done them. And so now it's time to reprint, which is very exciting. And we are trying to figure out a way that for sure the front of the bag stays the same, that aesthetic stays. I don't want to mess with that. But we're talking about different ways of visually cueing the customers about what's inside it. So the problem with the bottom of the bag is that often, even with, and ours is so fresh all the time, but just from sitting at the bottom, sometimes it gets to be a little bit dusty, and that's not what the rest of it looks like. So I would be nervous to put the bottom part clear, because then it's dusty. It doesn't go all the way to the top. So we're looking at maybe putting a band there, a window band there. The other option, which a lot of brands are doing, is actually real live kind of photos overlaid so that you can see, because people do want to know. And for example, our 3 traditional flavors, the consistency is like cereal. It's loose, but you don't know that from looking at it. And people like clusters, or they don't like clusters, or they want to know what it is. And I respect that. It's fine. Where the savory one, they really are clusters and there are more pieces. So if we could show that, I'm just trying to figure out a way. And we're also changing sort of the messaging on the bag so that we're being more descriptive about what's inside it and getting them to taste it without being able to taste it in fact. But I'm trying to avoid, I am 100% going to avoid the whole grocery store, window like everybody else has kind of thing, if only to continue standing out. And, it does go, it's all fine to say that it's intentional, and that I'm mindful about it and it goes with the seductiveness and all that, but I don't have that opportunity to explain it to every customer that's there. So they might just walk away and say, well, I don't know what's in it. So we're trying to just figure out that happy balance between maintaining that aesthetic without deterring people from wanting to buy it, basically.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We're on it.
And I think, having like a designer, for instance, as you were saying that, because I know that the challenges for packaging are also very hard. The average person does not know any of this. They're just like, well, why isn't this X, Y, and Z? Why can't it do this? Why can't it do that? And it's like, from a business perspective, that creates so many challenges. So whether you can do a window at the top or not, that's one option. Another option that I thought of, and again, it's like you can do photorealistic pictures. Another option that I thought of was like, that some people do is like the illustrations of the items. But again, that's not real. So it doesn't have that same impact. But also like potentially, instead of even a photo, you could also just have like realistic photos, real photos of real food items that are in the bag, just like illustrated as well. That's like another option.
And
I think
for
there's
example,
a lot of ways.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that you can achieve that if you can't do the window. But I do think that the window, to be perfectly honest, is like the fastest way, for a consumer to just like pick it up, understand very quickly and be like, oh yeah, that looks delicious.
100%. Like you were speaking earlier about the quality that goes into our product or into certain products that people are willing to spend for. Yep. When I have the chance, and now it is part of the messaging, but this is another idea about putting it on the bag, like any of the flavors that have almonds in it, for example, which is 3 of them at this point, they're all whole almonds. Like I'm never using slivered almonds. To me, that's very cheap. And that is to me, that's an indicator right away. This is a quality product. It's a whole almond. It's a whole cashew. It's, and even if it's just a smattering of these almonds on the bag, like either I'm saying it's whole almonds or I'm showing it, but I agree with you 100%. And I think that, there's going to be a way that we can do it in a way that's still classy and upscale and speaks to the premiumness of the product, but letting them see what's inside so they know what they're getting. When I can do demos and I can, and those things come back to life in stores, it's going to be great to do that again, because that's the best opportunity to talk to people and let them see it and taste it. And, but right now that's just not happening.
Yeah, exactly. I also have another question, which is, and I'm going to the website really, really quickly, just because I want to see, because, the photography is great, but I want to see how you drill down to it. So because it takes a couple clicks to truly get in there. And then when I do, I just want to check. I don't know if this is just loading slow. Okay. So you do have examples of kind of, well, that's like how to use it. I'm wondering if you have a shot just of the granola.
Sometimes, yes. I mean, that it's a lifestyle shot. So especially with the rosemary parm, I really feel like it's important to show people what to do with it, because they're like, sounds cool, but I don't know. It also sounds gross. I don't want to put it in my
this is very, very smart of you, but also at the same time, you need a photo that just shows the product close up. Because I know, okay, there's one almond there. I know how amazing the product is because I had it. You sent it to me and I tried it. But without knowing that and without seeing it on the bags, the only then option is for people, and this is what everyone does now. So like I did a talk at South by Southwest on the future of retail, and everyone has devices in their hands and everyone shops so differently now. When they're in the grocery store, when they're in the front of their yoga studio looking at a product, should I buy it or should I not? Literally, the way that behavior is now is that they will take out their phone and they will visit the website or the Instagram of the product, which is mind blowing, but it's almost like a reassurance for them. Like, so, and they'll check out the reviews. So it's really smart that you have reviews and all of that information on your homepage, by the way. So that photo of how amazing the product is needs to be like immediately available right now. I'm just going to throw this out on your website, on your homepage. It's, even though it's there, it's clouded because of the design and the style that you're using, which by the way, the overlays, that's a style and it's great. But I think that it's a couple clicks. So every click away that people are from seeing the actual product is too many. They need to be able to come to this homepage. And the one thing you can do instantly is somehow give them a fast, quick idea of the actual granola. And so, there are many ways that you can do that, but I'm throwing that out there for you as one thing to think about. And then the second thing I'm wondering is,
wait, I want to ask you a quick question though. Where the bags are, does that mean, would you get rid of where those bags are, and instead of that have the flavor name and that picture right there, or still leave, or just have it as that carousel or something that they could scroll down and see?
That's a good question. I'll be honest. Okay, let me just take this in for a second.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what are all of these partners.
So
I can tell they're Canadian.
Yeah. Like they're not straightforward customers, because they do have a store locator where you can find the product for retail. But for example, like this, well, I'm pointing, but Marché d'ici on the bottom, like that's a network of basically farmers markets that's around Montreal. So we exhibit at that. Moi d'abord, which is top right, that's a monthly subscription, a Quebec-based monthly subscription. Shop Local Canada is something that we belong to. That's all about, so they're like, League is actually really interesting. They basically offer insurance to tons and tons and tons of corporations, and they have a whole marketplace for the subscribers of the insurance policies, and we are a brand that they can choose to. So are you saying that we should lose that because it doesn't mean anything?
Yes.
Cool. I love that. Okay, good suggestion. We're trying to get rid of pages as we redo the website, so
I'm like, I know, it's the thing is, what is very heartwarming about it is that these are the companies and the people that have helped you grow, but it's now time to lose. You don't need to say that.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I never thought of that, but I like that.
I don't know, especially anyone coming from not Quebec, because this also seems very Quebec centric. I don't know what it means. For me, if there's something that's more global, like recognizable names, have you been in Forbes, or in Canada there's Chatelaine magazine. Now granted, no one outside of Canada knows what that magazine is, but it's like Marie Claire here in the US. So
any press will be good.
Major press, sure. Yes. So it's, instead of partners, it's like major press, and you could only even have 3. That is fine. Right.
You're going to be there when I redesign. This is what's going to be there.
Great.
It's going to be the SOS podcast.
No one knows about SOS. So, but
that's not true.
Forbes is very sweet. But yes, you're right. You need to show that you are. It's almost like qualifying the brand.
Totally get it.
That's how you get it. So just delete these partners.
Agreed.
The bags. So here's the thing with the slider. I love this because it's, from a usability standpoint, it's great because you can communicate many things very quickly. It's just that it is very dark.
Yeah.
I get it because your brand is dark, but it might, like, your branding is dark. You can communicate that through the branding and through the bags, which is there. I think that it might be time to step into the light, and for the slider purposes, use brighter. So it's just a fact. Brighter photography, brighter imagery is, for some strange reason, like, human beings like it more. It's right. If you are on Instagram and anyone ever posts like a photo from like the nighttime, like a photo from the concert, or like a photo camping, like, dark photos never do well. I think this teaches us something. There's something in our DNA. So from a visual perspective, so I would say the first impression instantly needs to be like bright, beautiful, clean photography that showcases the product more. So that's going to be the number one change that you do. The bags are perfect. Keep them on the homepage because that shows your branding, shows the bags, which are beautiful, and you need to show them off. And I also really like that that you do have like the 5-star reviews underneath, like from a visual perspective for people, that helps, again, qualify and quantify, like, oh, okay. But the one thing that I really like is down here that you have the reviews, and they may be auto-populated, they may not be, but take a cue from that. And so again, up here, you're getting rid of the partners. And instead of having that, have major press logos. If you don't want to do that, you can also use like quotes from press, right? So you can, if you have been in a major magazine and they've talked about your granola, like, you can also just use quotes from them as a good way. again, you have to think about people's attention spans, and they need to see things that will help them purchase in literally just a couple seconds. So scrolling and seeing a quote that's, by the way, like one sentence, not like a whole paragraph, one sentence, boom, that helps them. Seeing bright, beautiful photography of this like gorgeous, delicious looking granola, boom, that helps them. So like that's the goal, is to get your homepage to a point where like they stay on the website, because you only have 1.5 seconds to capture someone's attention. And that's a very short period of time. So like 1.5 seconds means they don't even scroll past this first sliders part, you know? So I would say do all of that. Something that you mentioned a minute ago that I thought about was, you know, the in-person connection is really smart. And you're going to be able to start to do that again soon, which is nice. Do you do the trade shows? Like, do you participate in the Fancy Food Expo, or do you do any of that stuff to kind of get out there in front of, that would be B2B, but in front of those customers?
So I haven't yet. I did a big trade show here in Montreal in 2019, which is really the last time that anything was really happening. So I did that. It was a consumer show, but also tons of distributors and stores walk it. So good things came out of it. In January of 2020, I actually walked the Fancy Food Show in San Francisco, sort of scoping it out, thinking that, you know, that's what was coming. I walked some shows in Toronto also, and then the world, you know, changed. So it's definitely on the horizon. We also, on our end, I mean, we didn't talk about this, but I think it's obvious. I stopped baking at home after about a year. And I've been working with a local caterer for the last sort of 2 years. And we are just about to start working with a co-packer, which is going to even further, you know, lower our costs, increase our margins, allow us to have the room to work with distributors and brokers and build in that margin that we need, that I didn't have with the, you know, when I was stopping to bake, it was because every hour that I was baking, I wasn't doing anything else for the business. And in fact, it was only in November of 2020 that I hired our first employee. So up until that point, it was just me doing everything all the time. So at that point, when I went to the caterer, it was really a trade-off, and it was almost costing the same as it was costing my time, but that's not the way to scale either, which now I know.
Well, I mean, I already assumed that you were with a co-packer. So that's great. That is for everyone listening. Like if the thing that I love is supporting small businesses, and most of these small businesses start in their kitchens, their living rooms, their garages, and the ones who understand how to grow, the ones who understand that they have to let go and not be in it so much to then scale and grow the business, they're the ones that grow. And it's so exciting to watch them grow. You know, there was a brand, Tea Drops, and she started by making, you know, she patented this thing of like freeze drying tea so that you don't need a tea bag. So you just drop this drop into a cup of hot water or hot milk, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. And she started hustling her teas at unique markets with it just on, you know, a little table. And she had like her hot water dispenser, you know, trying to convince people walking by, like, try this tea. And like, so she knows the hustle that, you know, all entrepreneurs, if you start like that, you know, the hustle, because you're like trying to get people to try your product who are just like, keep walking. Like, you know, like 1 out of every 15 people says yes. And then you're like, oh, thank God, you know. But the really, really solid brands that I have watched grow, like her, like Sashi, who took Tea Drops, and it is set to do $10 million this year.
Wow.
They understand at a certain point, like, they cannot do everything. So like, you find a co-packer, you find someone who can distribute, you find someone who can facilitate these deals, because you're not the right person. However, once you have those things in place, it is extremely important that you still stay getting out there, right? And so I do think that doing, when they come back in the future, I do think that doing some of the food shows and the food expos will be really, really worth your time. Again, it's money. So you know, it's an investment to do these shows, but it's one of the ways that she grew. And if your goal is to grow both D2C and B2B, you have to do that, right?
Yeah.
You
it was more that
going.
I knew that I couldn't do it if I wasn't set up with supplying the demand that I was sure was going to come. Maybe a little bit overly optimistic, but you can't go there if there's no question that some distributor would want to take us on. It depends on the quality and all of that. But if I couldn't deliver, what's the point of doing that? I'm not going to spend $20,000 to do a trade show to then come home and say, I'm not set up to actually fulfill these orders. So that was all building, it's gonna come back. I do a lot of like, we have these Etsy markets, like Etsy does these markets. And, when I can, consumer facing shows are really good. There's nothing better than that, being able to explain your product, sure, but seeing the reaction. And that also, right from the beginning, the first ones that I did, the reactions were so good that gives you the confidence to keep going, because it's one thing to say, I really think I have something great, and then nobody buys it. But then when they're coming back, they try it and they love it and they buy it, and then they're coming back. Like that, the proof is in the pudding, or in the granola, I guess.
Exactly. So I think you keep doing in-person events. That's part of it. Travel. Sure. I mean, so, your job becomes, as the founder CEO of this company, your job in many ways becomes being the face, and kind of driving and getting press and getting your story out there. It becomes interacting with people in person and building a large fan base and community base, because they will also help grow your business. And then it's going to these shows where you can then get in front of the buyers and the people who are making those decisions. Now, in this day and age, you can also be emailing different stores and doing that virtually and sending them, the trial bags to taste. And I think,
which we do,
that's one thing,
at least 25 a week, and having
amazing,
excellent success with that. It seems like now, finally, at least here, it's starting to be springy in the weather. And stores seem to be very open and hungry, again, no pun intended, for new brands. And like that, it's all going well. It's just, we're two people. Like, how can I possibly replicate what we did here all across Canada and then into the States without being able to scale properly,
Right.
So that's what we're working on.
Right. And I think you've started to place those bricks of the foundation. Like, you're doing what you have to do from a manufacturing standpoint. So, and then what you're going to do is start at the beginning. It probably will still be you traveling a lot. Sashi said, I recently interviewed her, and she said that, like, for the first couple of years before she also took outside investment to then really start to scale, for those first couple of years, she was traveling almost, every other weekend. So, it was like every other weekend she was on a plane to go to another show. Every other weekend she was going to a different region, because again, she saw the value of in person. She saw the value of creating brand recognition in places all over. And it was exhausting. She was like, I was absolutely exhausted. But at the same time, this is the hard work that people have to do. Like, a lot of people think like having a small business is just like, I'll be successful because I'll create an online store. It's like,
but you know what I always say? Like, there is nobody that's going to be better than me or than her or than whoever the business is at speaking about your business.
I will say this. You are the best person to represent your brand, but you are also not the only one that can. So as you grow, like, it's crucial for you to do it now because you're still in the beginning phases. Mm-hmm. But as you do start to grow, it would be very, very much worth your money to find a representative who is passionate about what you do and in sales, or just great at public facing. And they could be doing farmers markets in Toronto. They could be doing farmers markets in Vancouver. And I do know a couple of businesses that have thrived off that business model. So they have never really cared about retailers or wholesaling their product. They've always remained D2C, and they have just figured out this network of people who sell their products all over, which is also, another strategy and another way that you can grow.
Sure.
But
For sure.
I'm excited to watch you grow because it's a great product. You already know you have a great product. You already know you have great branding. So I think some tweaks are going to help you grow even more. And then as the world opens up, I just think naturally you're going to start to grow more and more. And like, I'm looking at your Instagram. It's great. The photography, I love all the photography, of the product. I think what you could start to do is like, you also have placed yourself in, which is really, really great. A lot of people don't do that. So like every few photos, there's you and there's founder story, which is really, really important and smart.
Yes, and I hate that.
I know
that I have to do it, but I hate that.
We know this is the number one. Everyone's always like, why do I have to be the But I'm going to throw this out there. I maybe I'm wrong, but on first glance, I don't see any sort of maybe influencer strategy. And so I think that that's one thing that you can do to grow your business also is start to implement an influencer strategy or community. I guess what I should be saying is more community minded strategy where you are getting your product into the hands of people who may have, and I want to preface this because I hate when people are like influencers, they need to have like 100,000 followers or 5 million. And it's just like, no, micro influencers are so much better. Like find people who love good food, who love the environment, quality, vegan, like find these very, very specific people, reach out to them, and it's like, they don't need to post necessarily, but them sending you content to post on your feed, and then stories. They can do stories with a swipe up.
That's we do a ton of that. We get reached out to all the time by these micro influencers, and that's in our stories all the time. I don't usually use them as like static posts that are going to live there forever, unless like this one. Again, I'm pointing, but
which one?
Like, okay, go up. There's like a stop motion video. This one, like to the left of the picture with all the girls.
Yes.
So that was somebody who had reached out to me and said, send me your product. I'd love to do it. And so he took some gorgeous photos and made this stop motion video, which was so cool. So, when it fits kind of in the feed, I'll do that. But anytime that we're shared or posted about in stories or posts, we put that in our stories.
Yes. But keep doing also, I think, hard posts, but potentially with people, because so all your products, and I know Heidi's like, we really have to wrap it up. She's screaming at me. But all of the photos I'm just going to throw out there are products, right? There's no human connection really, except for you. So my feedback there is I want to see more behind the scenes. So there is you. Like I do see you occasionally, which is great, but I want to see more behind the scenes. Like if you're doing these photo shoots where you're shooting this granola, like why are you not also taking the time to do professional shots of you, whether it's eating or whether it's a close-up of your hands mixing? I guess what I'm saying is there need to be more human elements in the photography because that humanizes something. And then using and working with influencers, or I shouldn't even use that term, photographers, video content makers is great. But again, humanizing it. So like photos of them, because as someone who consumes media and could potentially be a customer of yours or a follower, and you can convert followers to customers, as someone who's checking out your feed, it's all about you. But if you can start to flip that, so it's also about your community, then people are like, it somehow that helps them understand like, oh, I want to be part of this community. Oh, maybe I can reach out to them. But also naturally you see people. And again, Canada is very diverse and very good at being diverse. So making sure to show all different types of people, ages, I think that will be really important and that will grow because when people see themselves in your photography, then that helps them become a customer. So just throwing that out there, like the more people that you can see with the product, the better.
Great. That's great advice. Great advice. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. And I will end it at that. I feel like we talked about so much. So thank you for being here and opening yourself up and telling us about your business. I'm excited to watch it grow. And for everyone who's listening, yes, like check out the Instagram, check out the website. It's Granolust, like GRANOLUST. Today's top takeaways include number one, when designing product packaging, it has to stand out. Remember that. Picture your product on the shelf, whether it's in a grocery store, on a table, in a retail shop. That product and packaging has to stand out from all of the rest. If this means that you have to hire a professional designer, well, then hire a designer. You can't be all things. You can't be the inventor, the CEO, the web graphic designer, the product tester, and also the designer. Your product packaging is the first impression, and so put time and money into it. Number two, you cannot grow when you are the only one working. You have to find and cultivate your team. Whether you need to hire a co-packer, find another company to start producing at large volume, or whether you need a team to help you with social media or website design or Facebook advertising, you have to remember that when the time is right, you have to spend money and put time into finding great people and cultivating them. You cannot do it alone. It takes a village. The website and social media photography that you take need to showcase more than just your product. You have to be part of the story. Your employees, your studio, a look at behind the scenes, a look at entrepreneur life. These photos help tell a story and help create human connection. And that's really important. People purchase because of the why and the who, not necessarily the what. So when you plan photo shoots to capture your product photography, make sure to get lifestyle photography also of the product. Make sure to get photography of you. Maybe even turn the camera around and show the full scene from a different perspective, showing that you are doing new website photography. Again, it's telling a story about your journey as an entrepreneur and as a brand, not just here's my product, buy. Here's my product, buy. And takeaway number three, remember, there are micro influencers out there. You don't need to always go after people with millions of following. In fact, those people are most likely not going to be interested in working with you unless you have tens of thousands of dollars. So as a small business, as an emerging brand, I highly recommend finding bloggers and micro influencers on various social media platforms that speak to you and what you do. So if you are a food entrepreneur, just like Julie, you want to find people on social media who specialize in talking about food, who are passionate about food, potentially have similar interests like you, like they too are a female entrepreneur, or they too live in Montreal. These are all connection points. Find micro influencers and work with those people to help you push and sell and let other people discover your product. Again, these are people who are going to be more passionate and more organic about talking about your product. And I think there's huge value in working with micro influencers as opposed to influencers in general.